Look out your front window. Right now, you see manicured lawns, SUVs parked in driveways, and the guy across the street waving as he checks his mail. It is a beautiful, comforting, and incredibly fragile hallucination. It takes exactly 9 meals, 3 days of an empty stomach for that hallucination to evaporate completely. When the grid goes down, the supply chains snap, and the water taps cough up nothing but dry air, the monsters aren't going to come marching out of the woods in camouflage. They aren't going to parachute out of the sky, they are going to come from next door. The hardest pill to swallow about any large-scale collapse is that the landscape doesn't kill you, the people do. The social contract is nothing more than a fragile gentleman's agreement, and it expires the very second the lights go out. Your survival depends entirely on stripping away the illusion of the friendly neighborhood and seeing the people around you for what they truly are, vectors of risk. There are 7 specific types of neighbors who will unknowingly or deliberately get you killed when the system fails, and you need to know exactly how their minds are going to break so you can stay out of the blast radius. The first face you're going to see at your door is the one who joked about it for years. This is the dependent. You know exactly who this is. It's the neighbor who always said with a little laugh at the summer barbecue, "Well, if the apocalypse happens, I'm just coming to your house." It was never a joke. It was a subconscious contingency plan. The psychology of the unprepared mind is deeply rooted in normalcy bias. To understand how dangerous this is, look at how human beings behave during a sudden, overwhelming crisis. Neurologically, when a catastrophic event occurs, the brain often refuses to process the trauma. Think of the tourists who calmly stand on a beach and film a tsunami rolling toward their hotel balcony, or the shoppers who continue browsing shelves while a stampede happens at the front of the store on Black Friday. The brain desperately latches on to the nearest available anchor of routine. Because the dependent never stored water, never rotated a pantry, and never learned a single hard skill, their freezing brain immediately identifies you as their lifeline. Picture Dave from Two Houses Down. It's day 4. The power is out, the suburban silence is deafening, his fridge smells like rotting meat, and he walks up your driveway holding a plastic grocery bag like a beggar's cup. He just wants a little something for his kids. He smiles, expecting the old rules of neighborhood charity to apply. Your instinct will be to help, to be the good American neighbor. But if you hand over a single can of beans, you're not being charitable. You're establishing a parasitic bond. You have just proven that you have a surplus, and in a starving world, surplus is a magnet for violence. Dave won't mean to hurt you, but he will be back tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, until your supplies are gone. You cannot look like you are thriving. When you step outside, you must look just as tired, hungry, dehydrated, and confused as they are. You shrink your footprints, cooking only late at night, utilizing heavy blankets over your windows to trap not just the light, but the odor of boiling rice or meat. If they smell your preparedness, you become their pantry. But the dependent is actually not even the most dangerous. A parasite just drains you quietly over time. The next threat will actively put a target on your back in front of everyone. This is the local authority figure, the bureaucrat whose entire identity is wrapped up in controlling the microenvironment. Think of the homeowners association president, the overzealous neighborhood watch captain, or the guy who always calls the city to complain about grass height. When institutional power vanishes, when the police stop answering 911 and the government relief trucks never arrive, a massive psychological vacuum forms. Certain personality types cannot tolerate this void. The quiet terror of a lawless world breaks them, and they violently rush to fill the vacuum to soothe their own anxiety. On day 6, this is the neighbor who will stand in the middle of the cul-de-sac with a clipboard, organizing a mandatory community meeting. They will demand an inventory of every home for the good of the collective. Listen to me carefully. Resource pooling in an unprepared community is a death trap. It is forced wealth redistribution initiated by people who brought absolutely nothing to the table. Terrified crowds instinctively seek a leader, even a wildly incompetent one, because following someone else relieves them of the burden of making impossible decisions. If you publicly resist this new localized authority, they will point the finger at you, and suddenly you are the enemy of the collective. You deal with this neighbor by employing the gray rock method.
You become completely uninteresting. You project an aura of total, unbothered, useless energy. You nod, agree the situation is terrible, offer nothing of value, and quietly slip away. You never challenge them publicly because their power relies entirely on performative dominance. If you deny them an audience, they look for an easier target to boss around. You simply become a ghost in the crude bureaucracy they are desperately trying to build. While the bureaucrat weaponizes the terrified crowd, the third archetype weaponizes pure noise, ego, and illumination. This is the tactical junkie. He spent the last 5 years buying every piece of high-end military gear on the internet, mounting light bars on his truck and wearing combat boots to the grocery store. But he hasn't run a mile since high school. He bought the identity of a survivor without paying the toll of actual physical and mental suffering. In a grid-down environment, this neighbor is a walking target indicator. Picture what happens. It's 2 a.m., the suburbs are pitch black, a terrified teenager from a few blocks over trips and knocks over a trash can near his driveway. Operating on pure panic and adrenaline, the tactical junkie's heart rate spikes to 180 beats per minute. He hits the 10,000 lumen light bar on his roof, instantly turning his property into a glowing flare visible to every starving predator in 5-mile radius. His ears ring so loudly he couldn't even hear his own screams if he tried, and his rational brain completely shuts off. He dumps a 30-round magazine into the dark. In a world without highway noise or airplanes, that gunfire echoes endlessly. He hits nothing, but the brutal reality is that those stray bullets will tear straight through the wall and into the bed where you are sleeping. Worse, his loud, clumsy aggression will inevitably draw the attention of real, organized threats, who will see his glowing house and heavily armed posture as a supply cache waiting to be taken. Real combat veterans and professional survivors know that a fight is a desperate, bloody failure. They avoid it at all costs because a simple infection from a scratch on a rusty fence can kill you in 2 weeks when the pharmacies are looted and antibiotics are gone. You survive the tactical junkie by putting physical distance between his property and yours, letting his performative violence attract the wolves while you remain completely unseen in the dark. You can hear the tactical guy coming from a mile away. You can prepare for his mistakes. But the fourth neighbor, she kills you with a whisper, and you won't even know it happened until your door gets kicked in. You need to be deeply terrified of the neighborhood information broker. Right now, she is entirely harmless. She is just the local gossip leaning over the fence, trading rumors about divorces, layoffs, and who bought a new car. In a post-collapse environment, information instantly becomes the most lethal currency on Earth. She knows everyone's baseline. She remembers the massive pallet of emergency food delivered to your driveway 3 years ago. She noticed when you installed solar panels.
She knows who lives alone and who has medical vulnerabilities. When starving mobs or organized looters start moving through the streets looking for soft targets, the information broker will weaponize your secrets to buy her own safety. Picture a heavily armed scavenging crew backing her into a corner on day 8. They have crowbars, they are hungry, and they are threatening her children. To deflect attention from her own home, she will point a trembling finger directly at your house. She will tell them exactly what you have hidden in your basement, what your work schedule used to be, and how many people live inside. This is where operational security must become your religion. It is about controlling the entire data exhaust of your life, starting today. You do not throw away freeze-dried food packaging in your outside trash. You do not leave empty water filtration boxes by the curb. You do not talk about your preparedness at neighborhood block parties. If forced to interact with her in the aftermath, you must proactively feed her counterintelligence. You look her in the eye, your clothes deliberately dirtied, and complain bitterly about how thirsty you are. You casually mention you might have to abandon your home tomorrow to walk to a relief camp because your pipes are completely dry. You manipulate her data stream so the intelligence she eventually trades to a hostile force is a total dead end. Gossip is dangerous and tactical incompetence is loud. But the fifth one? This is the one I genuinely hope you never have to face. This is the one that will completely destroy you emotionally. The desperate parent. You need to understand that this encounter will break your heart because you will want to help.
That instinct, that deep human empathy, is exactly why a lot of good people die in a collapse. We are biologically wired to respond to the cries of children, but when the system fails, you have to understand the brutal physiology of starvation. By day 5 without food, and more critically, day 3 without clean water, the body begins cannibalizing its own tissues, and the pain in the abdomen becomes a blinding, all-consuming fire. When a parent watches their child go through this, the amygdala completely overrides the logical brain. Picture it. It's pouring rain, the temperature is dropping, and the mother is standing on your porch. She is holding a limp, feverish toddler. She is crying, begging, screaming for just one bottle of clean water. The tragedy of this moment is unbearable, but there is no reasoning with her. If you unlock and open that door to hand her a bottle, you have breached your last line of defense. The moment she realizes you have what her child needs to survive, she will put a knife in your throat to get the rest of it. And she will feel entirely justified before God and man because her genetic legacy is on the line. The biological imperative to protect offspring overrides every law ever written in human history. This means your physical perimeter defense must be fully established long before they reach your front door, and it must be entirely invisible from the street. You do not string up barbed wire. You apply shatterproof security film to the inside of your ground floor windows. You replace the half-inch screws in your door hinges with 3-inch steel screws that bite deep into the framing, done entirely from the interior. The house must remain impenetrable to physical force while looking completely normal, untouched, and unremarkable to anyone walking by. If you look that desperate parent in the eye, your empathy will force you to hesitate, and hesitation is fatal. Physical distance and impenetrable invisible interior barriers are the only buffers against lethal emotional manipulation. If you survive your own empathy, you still have to survive the cold, calculating math of the sixth threat, the opportunistic scavenger. This isn't the desperate parent acting out of pure biological necessity. This is the quiet, observant neighbor who simply starts testing boundaries. They operate on predatory math. Historical collapses, from the 2001 Argentine collapse to the chaotic aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, show us exactly how this person operates. They don't kick doors in on day 1. They probe. You wake up and notice the solar charger you accidentally left on the patio is missing. A few days later, you find a muddy footprint right beneath your ground floor window. They are running cost-benefit analyses, figuring out exactly how much resistance you will put up. Now, a lot of people think the answer is to make your house look like a military bunker. That is a fatal mistake. A fortress advertises that there is something inside worth protecting. Looters in natural disasters intentionally bypass houses that look completely dead. Your psychological deterrence must rely on strategic neglect and layered friction. You don't smash your own windows or leave doors hanging open. That invites the weather and the worst kind of attention. Instead, you create an aura of absolute sterile emptiness. You utilize starvation camouflage. You let the landscaping die. You sweep dust and dry leaves onto your own porch. You leave a single rusted, empty soup can near the steps. You pull the curtains tight and never let a single sliver of light escape at night. You want the scavenger to look at your property and think, someone else already stripped this place bare weeks ago. But beneath that exterior of quiet misery, your perimeter is hardened with invisible friction. Crushed glass hidden in the dirt right under the windowsills. Heavy, dark fishing lines strung tight across the dark blind spots in the yard. Ankle high. When the scavenger tests your perimeter at night and hears the sharp, terrifying crunch of glass or trips violently in the dark, their predatory math changes instantly. They want an easy meal. They do not want a broken ankle in a world without doctors or ambulances. They will naturally flow like water away from the friction and toward a softer, easier target down the street. All 6 of these neighbors are driven by fear, starvation, or incompetence, but the final neighbor? He is driven by pure opportunity. He is the final boss of the collapse. This is the charismatic sociopath, and he thrives in the chaos, adapting with terrifying speed. Before the grid went down, he was probably a middle manager, a slick real estate agent, or the guy who always dominated the neighborhood block parties. When the rules disappear, he realizes that the currency of the new world is human desperation, and he is an absolute master at trading it. He doesn't start with a gun, he starts with a smile. He gathers the terrified, the weak, and the unprepared, offering a highly conditional illusion of protection in exchange for absolute loyalty. The extreme danger here lies in how easily he corrupts normal, decent people. A charismatic sociopath possesses cognitive empathy without effective empathy. They understand exactly what you are feeling and how to manipulate it, but they don't care if you suffer. Imagine it's day 11. You're peering through a tiny slit in your blackout curtains. You see the sociopath standing in the middle of the street. He is calmly explaining to a crowd of your neighbors that the Miller family down the block is selfishly hoarding medical supplies while the community's children are getting sick. And then you see who is standing right behind him, gripping a heavy wooden baseball bat. It's Dave, the same Dave from day 4, the dependent who just wanted a little food for his kids. Dave gave Dave a can of peaches a few days ago, and in exchange, his soul was bought. Dave is now his enforcer. You watch in absolute horror as Dave and the former HOA president kick in the Miller's front door on the sociopath's orders. And then day 14 arrives. Picture your exact street. 2 weeks into the dark. The horrifying synergy of the broken neighborhood is completely locked in. You're watching through the glass, breathless. The information broker is standing on the sidewalk, pointing a finger directly at the house across from yours, trading her neighbor's secrets for a bottle of purified water.
Next to her, the bureaucrat is hastily writing a fake eviction notice on a torn piece of notebook paper, desperately trying to give the violence the illusion of rules and order. The sociopath stands on the lawn, smiling, completely calm, orchestrating the terror without ever getting his own hands dirty. The tactical junkie? He's either dead or stripped of his gear, because the sociopath's inner circle is now carrying his expensive rifles. And Dave is walking up the driveway, swinging the bat, doing the brutal, heavy lifting. This is how a neighborhood becomes a cartel. This is the exact anatomy of a micro-collapse. The followers commit absolute atrocities because they feel the smiling leader bears the moral weight of the actions, not them. If you refuse to join his collective, the sociopath will immediately brand you an outsider, a threat to the greater good, and weaponize the entire block against you. When this dynamic takes hold, you have 2 options. You either evacuate the area completely before his control network solidifies, abandoning your home entirely, or your starvation camouflage must be so utterly flawless that you are deemed entirely useless and invisible to his new empire. Now, imagine that exact nightmare unfolding on your street. Before it does, you have 1 weekend to get ahead of it. This is why you cannot wait for the lights to go out to figure out who is living next to you. You need to audit your street this weekend. It requires no gear, no money, and no special training, just silent observation. Tomorrow morning, take a walk through your neighborhood and look at the driveways. Look at the routines. Who is the person whose entire life falls apart, who completely loses her temper when the internet goes out for 3 hours or the power dips for a day? That is your dependent. Who is the person constantly patrolling the property lines, loudly complaining about parking violations and demanding absolute adherence to the neighborhood rules? That is your bureaucrat, quietly waiting for a real excuse to seize power. Watch how people handle minor, everyday stressors. Who screams at the exhausted cashier at the grocery store over an expired coupon? That profound lack of emotional regulation is exactly what will turn them into a violent, irrational threat when they are truly starving. Pay close attention to who talks too much. Who knows exactly what renovations the family on the corner is doing, exactly how much they spent, and exactly when the contractors arrive? That is your information broker, actively collecting data today that will be traded for a bag of rice tomorrow. And most importantly, look for the charismatic sociopath. Who is the person everyone seems to naturally orbit around? The one who demands loyalty but never sacrifices their own comfort for the group. The one who charms his way out of every consequence, who makes everyone feel special while secretly using them. Identify them now. Build the psychological map of your street while the streetlights are still on. Survival is an isolating, brutal mathematics. It requires you to look at the guy mowing his lawn, the woman organizing the bake sale, and the parents pushing the stroller, and understand exactly which psychological archetype they will default to when the hallucination of civilization shatters. Protect your perimeter silently, hardened from the inside, invisible from the outside. Guard your information with your life, treating every conversation as a potential vulnerability. Remain entirely unbothered by the chaos spinning around you, becoming a ghost in a world of loud, desperate mistakes. Establish your boundaries now, in the quiet, comfortable days, because when those 9 meals run out, the real predators won't need to break into your life. They already have the keys to the house next door.